Sachs is saying all the right things, though. So it's a bit odd, the thought that he would be a plant of some sort. Now, you can address that before I go into the last one or two questions.
I'd love to. No, honestly. And this is why I'm reticent to, like, I unleash today because I'm feeling annoyed, okay? Typically speaking, I try to be diplomatic because what I see when I look at somebody like a Sachs is somebody who represents a faction within the oligarchy that recognizes that it's not in the oligarchy's ultimate incentive to unleash nuclear war on the world. And I don't think that there's like one common beat frequency representing the entire strata of those families managing the high priesthoods of the oligarchy. I do see evidence of different factionalizations, kind of like what I inferred when I was mentioning this, the battle within the British elite classes of 1930 to especially the 1930s around whether you continue to support the Hitler Project or whether you abort and flush the Hitler Project and live to fight another day. It's kind of similar. There was a huge like knives out in Britain, you know, it wasn't clean. Amory, who's the father of Julian Amory, another handler of Gladio, was a big part of the push to oust the British king, the Nazi king, get Neville Chamberlain out and insert somebody like a Churchill who would be a little bit less overtly fascist, though still evil. Don't get me wrong, not the good guy, right? He was happy to kill millions of Indians. His motive, his religion was the British Empire. So, but he was more favorable to those who said, well, we'd rather not accept the conditions which Hitler is giving us, which is that under the New World Order, we're going to be somehow like equal or maybe even junior partners to the Nazis. Some were okay with that. And they thought that, you know, yeah, okay, we'll do that. And then we'll become the dominant alphas later in a few decades. Other ones, like I said, those who I just mentioned who were against Oswald Mosley, who, by the way, Tucker Carlson gave a little clean defense of in his interview with Cooper, saying that, oh yeah, Churchill was so bad he even like jailed an innocent politician, one of his political opponents, like Oswald Mosley and his wife. How bad was that? And it's like, way to like let the personal drama completely cloud any of the historic lessons that anybody might otherwise learn about what the hell was going on. All that to say, there's factions, and some factions have their self-interest a little bit more reasonably in tune than others. I think today, whatever that grouping is of that liberal fascist intelligentsia that Sachs is devoted to, they're at least aware enough that Russia and China and other countries are serious about their threats and their red lines, and that this could go holy smokes, right? Like scorched earth in a very out of control way. They were willing to do scorched earth nuclear war to the degree that they fully controlled as much as they could the terms and conditions of the outcome of the war, with the collateral damage being isolated to the mainland of Europe and Asia. But even that, I think that they would have preferred not even that. So I think, yeah, Sachs is like one of those who have been deployed to try to steer the ship in a different direction. It's not so easy because so much effort has been put into the momentum of this warship. And I ultimately, my point, I guess, when I warn of Sachs is simply to say, like, enjoy the show to the degree that he's being induced to do something useful for his handlers, but don't believe that he's the hero that some people have come to treat him as if he was this Road of Damascus converted person who's now a noble figure whom we should just take in, because there's Trojan horses in his analysis even now that he is infusing, which I think if the Russians or the Chinese intelligentsia are weak-minded and believe all of the Trojan horses he is trying to infuse, then they will create the spark of their own doing in the next years ahead. Because there's certain things about his view of Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, who is his godhead. Like, he's not a religious man, but he does see Keynes. He reads Keynes every night before he goes to bed, as he says he does, like as a Christian would read the Bible. He is a believer in Lord Bertrand Russell's Principia Mathematica, and he's given speeches, many lectures to the London School of Economics going through his devotion to Bertrand Russell's Principia Mathematica, and he gave also presentations that I've also researched. I've done the work, so I know he's truthful, except he's okay with that. That the basis of Bertrand Russell's Principia Mathematica that he co-wrote with Alfred North Whitehead between 1910 and 1913, what was that? It was Russell's attempt to try to codify the entirety of the universe and reduce the whole universe to a limited set of axioms and postulates that can be logically described and unfolded into the future and into the past, with the idea of like Laplace's demon, right? Like if you could know all of the data about the universe and trajectories and weights of everything going on in every galaxy and plug it all into a computer, then would you not be like an omniscient God who could know everything that's ever been and everything that will ever be? That's essentially what Bertrand Russell was trying to posit as a yes, and he was trying to rehabilitate Newton's Principia Mathematica that had only recently been overturned by the new discoveries in quantum mechanics and general theory that people like Max Planck and Madame Curie and Pierre Curie and Albert Einstein were making. They were basically demonstrating that there's no linear space, there's no limited array of axioms, that everything can be reduced to, there's no empty space, everything is quality everywhere, and that there's a relationship between the subjective mind of a researcher, of a seeker, and the objective qualities of that which is sought in the universe that we are a part of. We're not outside of the universe like a Laplace's demon looking at it from above. We're all a part of it. And the more we come to know the universe, as Einstein described in his philosophical text, and as Max Planck or Madame Curie, they all write about their own process. The more you come to know yourself, the more you know the outside, the more you know the inside, and the more you make discoveries, the more you could share, the more you could translate your new discoveries into means by which society technologically improves and overcomes limits to growth. To the degree that we overcome limits to growth and break free of those formerly limited sets of assumptions that were monopolized in the former set before our discoveries were made, then the oligarchy's Malthusian formulas of population reduction and everything else fail. It fails. So Bertrand Russell, as Jeffrey Sachs says, he is a devoted disciple of Russell, a Cambridge apostle, just like Lord Maynard Keynes, a Cambridge apostle. And if you want to know who are the real strategic, like so-called evil geniuses, I would say look at the Cambridge apostles. Alfred North Whitehead, Cambridge apostle. This is like the upper echelons of the oligarchical management. That's what you have to look at. And then he identifies how that translated into a student of Bertrand Russell. And I'm talking about a series of lectures he gave to the London School of Economics, a Fabian Society school, which is bankrolled by Lord Russell. One of his students was Norbert Wiener. Norbert Wiener studied under Russell at Cambridge, was one of Russell's boys, probably did some weird stuff with his boys, as they all do in Cambridge. And he came out of this kind of broken and generated cybernetics. So he's working now for the U.S. Navy, naval intelligence, working on radar, and he's the guy who generated cybernetics as the practical application to the theoretical model of Bertrand Russell in his Principia Mathematica, which was basically a feedback loop system that was then incorporated and funded by the Josiah Macy Foundation, that was formerly the biggest sponsor of eugenics, along with the Rockefeller Foundation. They produced the Josiah Macy Foundation conferences on cybernetics from 1944 all the way up until 1949. This is what Gregory Bateson, Margaret Mead, all of the MK Ultra psychiatrists and anthropologists were all brought into these Macy Foundation cybernetics conferences that generated things like Rand Corporation out of the U.S. military-industrial complex that was tied to Lockheed Martin, as well as MI6. All of this stuff was created to start changing decision-making from humans into objective, logical, essentially proto-AI. That's what Stanley Kubrick was making fun of in Dr. Strangelove. That was a real thing. That's what Henry Kissinger was acting upon. You know, and Kissinger was one of the composite characters around which Strangelove was created, as was Leo Szilard, a fanatical follower of the Fabian Society, and H.G. Wells, who created the atomic bomb, with the idea that, that if people could be unified around fear of the other and fear of something destructive like the atomic bomb, as H.G. Wells said in his books earlier, then we could they could give their acquiescence to a new type of society around a one world government, the abolishment of the ideas of religion, of God, of family, of faith, of morality, and have a new type of society emerge. And that became the driver of transhumanism. So again, Jeffrey Sachs has been incubated in this religion for a long time, and he was assigned to play a very important role in overseeing a new priesthood in the case of Russia, but also in China, which he also has very big penetrations in China, huge penetrations in China amongst the Chinese intelligentsia. And it scares me a little bit to think about the level of seduction. All you got to do is like really just, like he's good at speaking the language of the Confucians, but he hates what they're based upon. But he's able to like imbibe trust where he doesn't deserve it with people who, if they do trust him, will come undone by what he's infusing into them in the coming decades. So that's a concern I have.